Hello, my name is Father Tighe, and this is our 7th segment in our journey of faith in the light of the cross. And this begins our 2nd chapter, where Jesus tries to get the disciples to carry on his work in the world. So if we look at up our screen, we see Jesus makes them aware that God's grace goes ahead of them, preparing the way for the spread of the gospel. Now, the story with Thomas brings this about. It begins Jesus empowering them to see into the future with the light of Christ. So we go to our next screen and we see, once Thomas touches power of God in the wounds of Jesus, he is unbound to touch the power of God in the wounded of the world. This is very important. This transition from touching the wounds of Jesus to the touching of the wounds of the world start the disciples thinking about the future and thinking about what their mission is to bring Jesus' work to completion and fulfillment by bringing all the world together, especially the broken people of the world. So we go to our next screen and we see that in John 20:24, Thomas was not with the other disciples when Jesus came, and that's on Easter Sunday Eve. So they said, "We have seen the Lord," but he said, "Unless I see the nail marks and put my finger in his hands and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." A week later, now this is very important, Jesus' work is not done with his resurrection. It's not done with his breathing new life into the disciples. He has to keep going with them and bring them out of the insecurity of the upper room, the womb of the upper room, and send them out into the world. And he's going to use this incident where Thomas said, "I won't believe unless I touch the wounds of Jesus." Now we see a very powerful story unfold here. A week later, his disciples were still inside. This is very important. Still living in fear. So they couldn't complete Jesus' work and bring it to fulfillment. So Jesus has to keep working and keep coming back. Jesus came again while Thomas was with them this time. Okay, now we go to our next screen. And it says, Jesus came although the doors were locked. This is emphasizing that this is the resurrected, glorified Christ. He comes into their midst, but it's very important, he carries the wounds in his hands and in his side. He stood in their midst and he said to them, "Peace be with you." They do not have peace despite all that has happened on Easter Sunday and the resurrection and the week they've spent in the upper room. They're still full of shame, embarrassment, and they haven't got the courage to come out of the upper room yet. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Bring your hand and put it into my side. Do not be unbelieving, but believe." Now this is very important. When we touch people's wounds, we get squeamish normally. To get squeamish means you have this fragile feeling in your spine. You get an icky feeling, and that means that if this person can be wounded and broken, so can I be wounded and broken. And we're very conscious of our fragility. But this time, Jesus says to Thomas, "Come here. You were blustering about talking about this. Now touch my wounds." So Thomas does come and he does touch the wounds of Jesus, but instead of getting squeamish and feeling fragile, Thomas feels wondrously the power of God. And when he feels the power of God, his hands, his side, his heart is turned around. Something magnificent is happening to him, and he's realizing that Jesus has come for them to continue his work. And they start thinking about, what is Jesus' work? Jesus' work is to bring all the pieces of the world together in oneness. Bring heaven and earth together, God and man together, eternity with history. And it's going to happen by gathering all the broken, wounded people of the world. So Thomas said, "My Lord and my God." He feels God's presence. He feels God's presence not only in his fingers, not only in his heart, but his mind. He begins to understand everything. But more importantly, so do all the disciples. So Jesus uses this story of Thomas to get his bigger picture across. I can't let you stay in this upper room in your fears. I can't let you stay in this upper room wondering what people are going to do, or feeling fragile, that people can wound you or hurt you. Overcome your fears. Feel God's presence. Feel God's victory. Feel my victory. And when you do, you'll have the freedom to get out of this room and live bravely and courageously. And that's another thing. We don't allow ourselves to feel loved until we feel worthy of love. And we feel worthy of love when we live bravely or courageously. Not by being perfect and avoiding sin and avoiding this and that, but braving the unknown, braving the future, braving our fears, facing our fears and overcoming them. So we see Jesus said, "Blessed are those who have not seen, yet believe." Jesus is talking about, I didn't die just for you guys. I didn't die just to resurrect and come back to you. I have to now send you out into the world to bring all my work together, to bring all the work together. And now as the disciples, their feelings are full. Their feelings are full, their heart is full and overflowing. But then their mind starts overflowing. And as I said, they realize that Jesus has come to bring oneness. And they remember Jesus' prayer the night before he was arrested. Lord, that they all may be one. And we have to go over that in the next segment. But what is happening is they're becoming alive, they're becoming full, and their awareness is growing. Their awareness is growing as their love is growing. Their generosity is growing, and they're overflowing, and they're coming closer to God. And this unfolding mystery will continue till John's Gospel is finally written and published 65 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. God works in us all our lives. And we are unfolding mysteries. And that mystery unfolds as we face our fears. We touch the wounds of the world. And we believe and we see that God can put the broken pieces together. The broken pieces of people's lives. And he can organize them. Organize means give life. When you put pieces together that life comes to them, then you're talking about God. God's life-giving love wants to put all the pieces of the world together. So we see, as we begin this second chapter, that Jesus is working really hard in empowering his disciples to get ready to go out into the world and do this magnificent work of oneness, bringing all the pieces of the world together, not they bringing them together, but allowing God to work through them to bring all the pieces together, because only God can take the broken pieces of this world and make them a living organism that brings living Christ to all the world and brings heaven and earth together in his oneness. And as the disciples overflowed with generous love and they started to get the courage to come out, they think of themselves offering themselves in service to God. And we think of that beautiful hymn that we sing in church, "Here I am, Lord." The disciples were ready to go out, not only Thomas, but all of them. "I will break their hearts of stone, give them hearts for love alone. I will speak my words to them. Whom shall I send?" And Thomas is the model for all the disciples. "Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, wherever you lead me, where you lead me, and I will hold your people in my heart." The apostles were getting ready, and I hope you're getting ready to go out and complete God's work and bring all to fulfillment. Thank you for being with us, and I hope you stay with us in our 8th and 9th segments as we continue the work of Jesus to bring all into oneness.